our candidates are elected, they are there to serve everyone, not just Democrats. And that was, that character, in my opinion, was demonstrated when we began the process to open our primaries to independents. And I don't know if there are any independents in this room, but I hope you feel that way, and I hope you feel welcome because of that. Destroyed by ineptitude or corruption, but literally destroyed by bombs. And he helped rebuild those institutions from the ground up in Kosovo, in Iraq, perhaps other places that he can tell you about. A veteran officer with the Tulsa Police Department who retired and then went in as a private contractor under the supervision of the Department of Defense and the United Nations. Without further ado, because he's here to talk to you, and then he's going to answer your questions candidly. A man who is a straight shooter and a straight talker, Rex Berry.
Thank you, Greg. I keep getting all these points of suggestion, like Rex, don't cross your arms, so I don't know what to do with the extra ones. It floats around, please forgive me. And then people like Joe and Tim and a few others keep saying, Rex, keep the speech short, 3 minutes. Here's what you need to do, cut that out, don't talk about this, do that. And I'm going, okay, I'm whittling it down, I think I've got it. And then Greg calls me last night and says, give him your 15-minute speech. So I'm, okay, how do I do this? I think best, I will just touch on a few points. And then I just as soon open it to questions to answer what it is you want to know, rather than me telling you what I want to know. This has been a real cultural learning experience for me since I'm 66. After I came back from overseas, I was going to be happy in my retirement job, making no decisions and staying quiet. Since that time, I've learned I'm probably not going to get to do that. The way things broke down, and when I was first recruited, I said, no, you had John Bowman and Rick Weigel in control of the sheriff's office. That's as good as it's going to get. And I would forgive them for being lifelong Republicans, but they were on top of it. And then I saw how unceremoniously they were treated by the Board of County Commissioners. And then I was asked, can I step into this? I got to looking at it. I do have a rather unique combination of skills and experience. And instead of being another one, which is what I wanted to do, that sat on the sidelines and found fault with others, it's time for Rex to get on the field. That's what you should be doing. That's a responsibility. See if you can turn it around. It has indeed been a learning experience, and people were telling me I had to learn how to tweet. Well, okay, I got a cockatiel. I'll see what I can do best on this. No, Rex, that's not it. But what I learned many things overseas, and a lot of it applied to here. And I could see what was happening with the division between like the Albanians and the Serbians, the Shias and the Sunnis and the Kurds. And I started seeing a lot of that really developing here, which tremendously concerned me. I don't like it. I don't like the polarization. I don't like the inflammatory and highly inaccurate and irresponsible rhetoric that I'm hearing. Let me blaze this out really quick. ISIS is not hiding under your bed. You have nothing to fear from the Islamic community. Let's stop that. If you want to look at the numbers, and it comes from a database called the Global Terrorism Database administered by the University of Maryland. I think that's a somewhat respected organization. If you look at it, Islamic zealots account for less than 1% of what we're seeing. If you're afraid of dying in a multi-shooting, you're much more likely to die at the hands of a somewhat unbalanced white Christian male zealot that's been pushed over the edge by someone saying, fear the other side. In fact, this polarization has pushed us so far that we are stigmatizing huge segments of our society. We're afraid of everybody. And to top that off, we want to put a gun in everybody's pocket. That is not a recipe for a civilized society. That's right. I have already come out often and publicly. I think my partner Sabine Brown over here can testify to that I am in favor of gun control. And like I told him last night on the news, I refuse to accept that nothing can be done. I refuse to accept that the idea of putting more guns in more irresponsible hands is going to make things safer. 36,000 and some gun deaths last year. I mean, that many times a loaded gun wound up in the wrong hands. So, just opening that up is not going to work. Then I throw in my personal experience of training special operations and tactics. I can tell you that when guys like Wayne LaPierre jump up there and tell you, the only thing that'll stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, that's a man that was a draft dodger that never worked in tactics, never got shot at, never had to face that. So I don't want to attribute nefarious motives to him, but the guy also makes $1.2 million a year selling that message. And then you'd have to ask, gee, why do the NRA and the GOP and wanted-makers not allow loaded weapons on their moors? I haven't quite figured that one out. What I have learned, and one of my favorite people, and I'm going to name drop, because I met him and he actually awarded me the Medallion of Excellence, was at the time Lieutenant General David Petraeus. A couple of things that he said, he was the first person that I heard say, we cannot win this, we cannot kill our way to victory, which really upsets me with the militarization I see within our own society. We put out a lot of polarization, we scare people, and then we take our military surplus, hand it to the police so that they can then defend themselves against the people that we've also sold the other military surplus to. And no one has paid any attention to the history that a force of occupation does not last long. Law enforcement is a part of the community. We want to be part of the community. Every situation, we want, anytime you have a meeting between members of the community and the law officers, we want everybody to walk away from that alive. Everyone's alive, we can deal with it. 26 years as a Tulsa police officer and supervisor, 10 years overseas. I am very proud of my police history. I make no apologies for it. I will also tell you we're not perfect, we make mistakes. But if we keep everyone alive, we can address the mistakes. That also being said, I'm also a strong believer in thinking globally. You've got to know what's going on around, because eventually it's probably going to come to your doors. But act globally. What's happening, or reversed it, didn't I? Think globally, act locally. I'm glad I have her there to watch out for me. I do step on myself, and I get confused trying to keep this arm out of the way. Yeah, I don't multitask all that well. But yeah, no. Well, that's also that's getting into some philosophies there. Tulsa does not have a problem with terrorism. Let's keep that on there. Let's not throw away very rare and bigger our juvenile justice system is going to have to grow. The bigger our prison system is going to have to grow. And that means the bigger your county jail is going to grow. The more law enforcement, the more judges. Putting money on my end of it, on law enforcement and throwing people in jail, means we're injecting money into what has been failures to that point. We put money at the beginning with the children, with the support, with taking care of education. That is an investment in the future. Certainly that's outside the official scope of the sheriff's office, but carrying the weight of the sheriff's office, that is exactly what I will say to our state legislature, and that's exactly what I'll say to our governor. It's time to wake up. Let's please remove our heads from our collective heads from those dark recesses on the other side, and let's take care of our people.